Hello and welcome everyone to our instructional webinar for the 2023 3D Elevation Program Broad Agency Announcement. My name is Brian Hadley and I'm here today representing the 3D Elevation Program where I'm the Elevation Data Acquisition Lead. I'm joined today by my colleagues Diana Tunin and Michelle Funk, who will help with any technical questions and facilitate the question and answer portion of today's webinar. The purpose of this webinar is to provide an overview of the fiscal year 2023 3DEP Broad Agency Announcement Application Process. This program announcement, released in Federal Fiscal Year 2022, or FY22, results in awards in FY23. The goal of 3DEP is to complete acquisition of nationwide lidar with IfSAR in Alaska to provide the first ever national baseline of consistent high-resolution elevation data, both bare earth and 3D point clouds, collected in a time frame of less than a decade. Oversight for the 3DEP is the responsibility of the U.S. Geological Survey. The program is managed and operates within the USGS National Geospatial Program. However, 3DEP is a collaborative program and it includes over 300 federal, state, tribal, local governments, as well as private sector and nonprofit organization partners are working together to achieve the goal of national coverage of enhanced elevation data for the nation. We greatly appreciate your interest in 3DEP and are happy to have you, that you've taken the time to join us today. This instructional webinar is organized to provide a comprehensive look at the 3DEP Broad Agency Announcement and BAA process. We will begin with a short overview of the 3DEP program. Then we'll present a summary of the results of our previous BAAs to ensure that all applicants are aware of existing, in progress, and planned 3DEP data. For the new process, or for those new to the process, this is intended to inform you about the scope and size of successful BAA projects. We have a brief overview of the contracting options available for BAA projects, followed by an overview of the application materials and process. Finally, we'll present information about the criteria used to select projects through the BAA process and a short, very general overview of agreement types and timelines. There will be time for a short question and answer session at the conclusion of the presentation. Everyone but the speakers will be placed on mute for the duration of the webinar. Please use the Q&A feature in Microsoft Teams to submit any questions. We will group similar questions so that we can address as many as possible during today's session. We encourage questions throughout the presentation, and we will answer as many as possible after the presentation is complete. If we can't address all the questions during the session, we will follow up by posting answers on the BAA FAQ web page, which can be accessed at the URL listed under the first bullet on this slide. We encourage you to review the FAQs, which are already populated with questions and answers from previous years. Additional questions can be submitted to gs_BAA@usgs.gov at any point during the open window of the BAA. You'll see this email on slides throughout this presentation. It should be used for any correspondence related to the BAA. Questions submitted to the BAA mailbox will be responded to individually, and where appropriate, we will remove specific identifying information and add questions to the list of BAA FAQs to make information available to a wider audience. The FAQs will be updated regularly as needed throughout the open period of the BAA. The USGS has a long history of providing elevation data to the nation, first through contours on our topographic maps and later as digital data in the National Elevation Data Set. The 3D Elevation Program is our current effort to provide updated high-resolution elevation data for the nation. Our goal is to acquire national high-resolution elevation data from lidar, again, IfSAR data in Alaska, in less than a decade. This program is transformational because it acquires lidar data to provide both a high-resolution bare earth surface and 3D point cloud data. These data are transforming industries and creating new applications that were not possible before. 3DEP is a call for community action because it's an effort to address more than 600 mission-critical needs reported by 34 federal agencies, 50 states, and a sampling of other organizations that were documented in the National Enhanced Elevation Assessment, or NEA, of 2012. Many of you have participated in the ongoing 3D Nation Requirements and Benefits Study, which is designed to determine future elevation needs from our highest mountains to our deepest oceans. The USGS National Geospatial Program will use this information to assure our programs continue to satisfy the needs of our nation for high-quality enhanced elevation data. 3DEP is also a call for community action because it is a partnership that depends on the collaboration of federal, state, local, tribal, and other partners to fund the data acquisition. 3DEP was designed to provide a 5-to-1 return on investment and a conservative monetary benefit of more than $690 million if implemented in 8 years. 3DEP leverages the expertise and capacity of private sector mapping firms that acquire the data for the program through the USGS Geospatial Products and Services Contracts, or GIPSI, and through acquisitions managed directly by partner applicants through financial assistance awards. 3DEP will help our partners realize an estimated 25% cost efficiency gain by acquiring data in large project areas. And of course, we will completely refresh our existing publicly available data, national elevation data holdings, and consistent new lidar and IfSAR data products and services. In 2015, the program began delivering these new products and services through the national map. We'd like to take time in presentations to identify the many mission critical applications of 3DEP, but today we have limited time, so I'll highlight just a few examples. Flood risk management is one of the uses that has the highest dollar value and societal benefits from 3DEP, and FEMA has been an excellent partner and supporter of the 3DEP program. Geologic hazards are a critical application area for lidar. In the upper right of this slide, we have an image of a landslide that was not visible in aerial imagery because of the tree cover, as well as an image showing where lidar has revealed previously unmapped faults. 3DEP can be used for analysis of alternative energy potential. The example in the lower right of this slide shows a 3DEP data acquisition jointly funded by the Department of Energy Geothermal Technologies Office, USGS, NRCS, and BLM that will allow DOE to better evaluate geothermal resources in the Great Basin. 3DEP is useful to infrastructure management as well. And with our aging infrastructure, this is becoming a growing national concern. Again, these are just a few of the important uses for 3DEP that remind us why this effort and our collaboration is so critical to the nation. As the program matures and additional data becomes available, program participants are discovering new and innovative ways to utilize the data. The USGS is interested in how recipients use lidar data to support their mission and business objectives. The 3DEP BAA submission tool described later in this webinar asks all applicants if they would be willing to be contacted post-award to discuss their specific uses of the data. 3DEP is built on partnerships. There are two primary paths for lidar data acquisition for 3DEP. USGS and other federal agencies may partner via federal interagency agreements. These direct federal partnerships combined with direct federal acquisitions account for approximately 2/3 of the annual acquisition plan for the program. The 3DEP BAA is the vehicle for soliciting partnerships with non-federal partners. The BAA outlines a fair and equitable process that allows federal, state, local, tribal, and private organizations to propose data acquisition projects. Together, the two acquisition streams form the 3DEP acquisition plan for the year. The status graphic shown on the slide reflects the current status of 3DEP data acquisition. The dark green represents the available or in-progress data that meet or are expected to meet the 3DEP specification. The medium green represents pending contributed data sources. The bright green represents FY22 lidar partnerships that have been awarded for contract or are planned for contracting in federal FY22, meaning before September 30th, 2022. Planned projects are subject to change until they are under award. In this map, we've also highlighted the FY22 BAA awards in orange to emphasize projects that resulted from BAA submissions. The dark blue represents where the program was acquired IfSAR data in Alaska, which is now 100% complete. This map symbology will be used throughout this presentation. FY23 has experienced significant growth since its inception. These charts represent investments from over 300 distinct federal, state, local, academic, nonprofit, and private sector partners. The bar graph on the left illustrates the annual financial investments in 3DEP by all funding partners. As noted earlier, the FY22 investments are shown as actual and planned. Planned FY22 investments are subject to change until they are awarded. The number of partners involved highlights the importance of partners to 3DEP. On average, BAA covers 30% of total project costs with a range of 2 to 50%. In FY22, project awards range from $19,000 to $5.4 million, with an average award of approximately $1 million. Project sizes ranged from 50 to 28,000 square miles, and there is a general alignment between the project size and the project award. The range in award size and project scope highlights that the program recognizes that this flexibility may be required to collaborate with partners with limited resources. We encourage applicants with any amount of partnership funding to put forth a submission for consideration. I will note here that there are some federal guidelines that influence award amounts. These guidelines are covered in the BAA program announcement in section Roman numeral 4, eligibility information, specifically subsection B. We encourage you to read this section and send specific questions to gs_BAA@usgs.gov if you would like USGS to review these guidelines as they apply to your situation. We'd like to take a moment to thank and congratulate our previous 3DEP BAA award recipients. This program relies on investments from a wide range of 3DEP stakeholders with interest in developing partnerships to share data acquisition costs in support of individual mission and business requirements. 3DEP posts an annual list of agencies and organizations who have received awards. A short project synopsis is requested on the application, and if selected for award, the USGS extracts that portion of the application and shares it on the 3DEP website. In addition to the project synopsis, we include information on the project size, the quality level of the data, the contracting mechanism used, and a graphic showing the geographic location extent of the 3DEP BAA awards. We do not post the points of contact or financial information for awarded BAA projects on the website. The number of awards in a given FY fiscal year is based on the availability of funding. The government will review proposals based on the project's alignment with the evaluation criteria identified within the program announcement. Awards will first be offered to those proposals receiving the highest score, and the government will continue to offer awards to other candidates whose proposals receive favorable scores based on the availability of funding. The total BAA award amount has averaged approximately $10 million over the past several years. We will discuss project selection criteria a little bit later in the presentation. The entire project lifecycle for lidar acquisition from project formulation to product delivery is often 18 to 24 months or even longer. The timeline presented here is focused on the near-term actions of gathering and reviewing requirements, submitting a BAA proposal, the selection and notification of BAA partnerships awards, and the responsibilities of both USGS and the BAA recipients to ensure a successful and timely initiation of data acquisition. The actions shown here in dark blue are relevant to the FY23 BAA cycle. The top line outlined in red describes the first and current phase, which includes the public webinar, the release of the BAA program announcement, which is tentatively scheduled for late September, partner submissions of attachment C, which is a request for preliminary independent government cost estimate where that is appropriate. The deadline for submission of BAA proposals, which is tentatively scheduled for mid to late November, depending on the date of the announcement, and the window during which we will review and notify partnership award recipients. An evaluation team will review project proposals after proposal submission deadline. Proposals received by the initial deadline will receive priority consideration for funding. Proposals received after the deadline will not be reviewed as part of the initial review process, but will be reviewed later. The BAA will remain open until June 1st, 2023. Amendments to this BAA may be issued if additional funding or geographically targeted partnership opportunities become available during the open period of the BAA. Federal BAA funding partners other than USGS may provide funds to support BAA awards, and as part of the review team, we will be given an opportunity to review BAA submissions that overlap with their high priority areas of interest. Initial BAA partnership award notifications are expected to be announced in December of 2022. That date is pending. The confirmation of the final release of the application, the final release of the BAA. USGS will notify recipients as soon as their project has been recommended for award. This will provide recipients early notification of our intent to fund your project so you can move forward with finalizing the details of your project and initiating the agreements needed to secure and transfer your funds. It is important to note, however, the federal government may not have finalized the FY23 budget at that time. If the government is operating under a continuing resolution, our ability to spend or commit funding will be limited, and so awards will be pending the availability of funding. Throughout this presentation, we will refer to two types of contract mechanisms that can be applied for under the BAA: USGS Geospatial Products and Services Contracts, or GIPSI, or financial assistance agreements, most commonly in the form of cooperative agreements or co-ops. I'll note some key attributes of each here as background before we discuss the application process. First, we'll address the GIPSI mechanism. For the GIPSI, the USGS manages the contract. The applicant provides their portion of the project funding to the USGS through a joint funding agreement, an interagency agreement, or other appropriate agreement type. The GIPSI is a multiple award acquisition vehicle that is designed to utilize the teams of firms on the contract for services needed to accomplish 3-depth data acquisition. Firms on the GIPSI have been selected based on their qualifications and performance in providing the professional services needed for 3-depth. The contracts include acquisition, processing, delivering, and quality assurance of lidar and other source geographic data. To ensure data quality and efficient development of standard products and services, the USGS prefers that partners use the GIPSI when possible and expects to allocate approximately 75% or more of the available funding to projects proposing the use of GIPSI. In a financial assistance scenario, the USGS passes funds to the BAA applicant. This is most often by means of a cooperative agreement or co-op, so materials and processes related to co-ops will be referenced throughout this presentation. Applicants approved for financial assistance awards are responsible for managing the data acquisition contract and must assure that the data delivered to the USGS complies with the current LiDAR-based specification, or LBS. Financial assistance applicants must provide a technical proposal that provides sufficient information to allow the USGS to determine your ability to manage and deliver 3-depth compliant data in a timely and cost-efficient manner. The USGS is available to provide technical support. Following award of a financial assistance agreement, the USGS will schedule a kickoff call with the recipient, the contractor they have chosen to complete the acquisition, the USGS contracting officer's technical representative, and subject matter experts across the USGS National Geospatial Technical Operations Center. These people will be available to help you throughout the project life cycle. If 3-depth data contracted through financial assistance agreements must be submitted to the USGS for data validation, and the data must be accepted by the USGS prior to closing out the agreement. Now let's discuss the application process. The BAA documentation consists of 3 types of documents: instructions, submission forms, and reference materials. We'll review important aspects of each type in the following slides. The BAA instructional materials include the program announcement, which contains instructions and authorities pertaining to the opportunity. Applicants should read the program announcement carefully and refer to it regularly during the application process. A project boundary in vector GIS format must be submitted as part of the application. Attachment B includes instructions for creating a 3-depth project boundary. This attachment should also be reviewed carefully to ensure proposal boundaries reflect the proposed project area as closely as possible. One specific item in the BAA program announcement that I'd like to point out is the policy about publication of 3-depth data over tribal lands. The USGS is required to provide federally recognized Indian tribes and ANSCA corporations an opportunity to consult with the agency before taking any actions that may affect their lands. USGS will initiate and manage tribal notification on behalf of partners. A tribal notification letter will be sent to the tribes and to the primary BAA partner to notify each that the tribal notification process is underway. If the tribe objects to the public release of any LiDAR products over their lands, the data may not be published. However, all project data outside the tribal lands can be published. It's important to note that if the tribe objects to the public release of LiDAR data and DEMS for their lands, USGS will need to get the written permission from the tribe before providing a copy of the restricted data to the non-federal partners for their own needs. All funding partners may not further distribute the restricted data. This policy is outlined in section Roman numeral 2, C3 of the BAA program announcement. USGS uses a standard application form for BAA submissions, which is often referred to as Attachment A. This form must be included in the proposal submitted for consideration. Standardization provides a fair and equitable way for the USGS to assure we receive the information we need to evaluate the proposal, while also allowing for a standardized and equitable way to score and rate proposals. We estimate it will take about an hour to prepare and submit the form. That estimate does not include the time that it takes to plan the project and to develop the partnerships. The form is designed to autofill and auto-calculate certain fields, and it is very important that you work the form from start to finish and hit tab when prompted for the process to work properly. The first part of the form asks for contact information and project information. As mentioned earlier, the project title and synopsis will be posted on the 3DEP website for projects selected for partnership award. Applicants must provide information about the geographic extent of the proposed project. We ask for a graphic to be inserted into Attachment A and that a vector GIS file of the boundary be submitted with the application. As mentioned earlier, please follow guidance provided in Attachment B to create the project boundaries. In addition to the GIS file, we also ask for the total area of the project in square miles. It is very important to hit tab as prompted after entering the project square miles so that the form properly auto-populates this value in the project finances section of the form. We ask for your preferred acquisition season and then remind you that the project data must adhere to the current LiDAR-based specification. We also ask you to identify the LiDAR quality level or QL you're proposing. The National Enhanced Elevation Assessment of 2012 and the subsequent 3D elevation program call for action concluded that most needs could be met by a national baseline of QL2 data. We recognize that some applicants have requirements for higher density data or data with increased positional accuracy. Those needs should be expressed in your proposal. FY23 BAA submissions generally should be for an acquisition window of spring 2023 through fall 23, winter 24. If you're considering an acquisition window in the spring of 2024, if feasible, you might consider postponing your submission until the next BAA cycle. If that is not feasible, please move forward with the submission and include details and a justification in the additional project details or clarifications box in the BAA submission tool. If necessary, the USGS evaluation team will ask clarifying questions through the contracting officer during the proposal evaluation. We ask BAA applicants to identify unique capture conditions and additional products and services in their proposal. This same list of capture conditions and additional products is included in Attachment C, Request for a Preliminary Independent Government Cost Estimate, or IGCE. The USGS does not have a standard price for these additional products and services. For example, just as the price per unit area for LiDAR is different for every project, the price for additions to the minimum LiDAR classification scheme may also be different. Other products and services are likewise project dependent as well. It's important to know that the cost of additional capture conditions and products and services are the responsibility of the applicant. 3DEP does not cost share on these types of products and services. You will be asked to identify which contracting mechanism you prefer to use, either GIPSY or financial assistance cooperative agreements as described earlier. Those requesting a GIPSY project will be asked to identify a suggested source or preferred contractor if one exists. It's not mandatory to identify a suggested source, but if you do, your rationale for selecting one is required. Although we will make every effort to do so, USGS is not obligated to award the project to the suggested source. The technical approach section is not required for those applying for a GIPSI project. For those requesting funds through financial assistance, the technical approach is perhaps the most important component of your proposal. Applicants must clearly articulate their proposed technical approach, how their proposed technical approach will result in data that conforms to the lidar-based specification, again, LBS, and how it can be integrated into the national 3-depth data holdings, and that is a good investment to the government. In the project finances section of the application, the applicant is asked to enter the estimated cost of their project. Please read and closely follow these instructions. A cost estimate should be developed based on the geographic extent, terrain, vegetative cover, and other factors which influence the cost of any given project. Applicants must include an estimated project cost using one of 3 mechanisms. The first mechanism is a preliminary independent government cost estimate, again an IGCE. This IGCE can be attained by submitting attachment C to GS_BAA at USGS.gov approximately 3 to 4 weeks after the release of the BAA. The specific date is to be determined. Attachment C is included in the BAA package. The second mechanism is an estimate received from a lidar acquisition contractor. The third mechanism is an estimate received from another source along with an explanation of how the costs were derived. For the second and third mechanisms, the USGS will complete an independent review of the estimate during the BAA proposal evaluation period to determine if the costs reflect valid industry costs for the specific geographic area and reflect a good value to the government. There are 2 options to enter total project costs in attachment A. You can either enter the total estimated cost of the project, or you can enter the cost per square mile. After you enter one of these values in the appropriate area of the form, hit tab and the tool will auto-calculate the corresponding value. For example, if you enter the cost per square mile, the total cost will be calculated based on the project area. In either method, the total project cost will also be auto-populated in the funding table on the following page. On the proposed funding table, it's very important to select the contract mechanism option in the upper left. The form will perform differently based on your selection. For those selecting the use the GIPSI option, 94% of your contribution goes directly to the cost of the acquisition. A 6% assessment helps to defray contract management and operational costs associated with each task order. For transparency, you'll enter your total contribution and the table separates these costs. If you have chosen to apply for a financial assistance award, the GIPSI assessment will not calculate. This form is an essential element on the application because it clearly defines the magnitude of the BAA partnership award being requested and the partnership funding being offered. Finishing out the project finances, the primary applicant needs to provide an attachment D for each of the partners contributing funding to the project. This is not a legally binding document. However, it helps to assure the BAA evaluation team that each partner is fully aware that they are being listed as a funding partner and their proposed contribution is being made in good faith. Finally, we ask you to provide information on past performance and give the opportunity to provide any additional information. As a reminder, our proposal must include 3 things: the resources the applicant is bringing to the project, the resources the applicant is requesting from the USGS, and a technical approach sufficient to ensure that the resulting data will be 3-depth compliant. The USGS wants you to have every opportunity to submit a proposal for consideration. So if you have problems with the form, please send a note to GS_BAA at USGS.gov. If we can't resolve your problem through email, we'd be happy to set up a meeting and walk you through the form. The process to submit your application depends on the contracting mechanism selected. Applicants who wish to use GIPSI can submit their application directly to the contracting officer by emailing the required files to GS_BAA at USGS.gov. GIPSI applicants are not required to fill out or submit any of the SF424 forms. Financial assistance applicants must submit materials, including SF424 forms through the grants.gov system. Now we'll review key criteria used to evaluate proposed projects, the first of which is project location. The evaluation process gives preference to areas with no 3-depth quality LiDAR coverage, which are shown in cream or white on this map. Secondary preference is given to geographic areas where data are more than 8 years old or where significant changes have occurred on the landscape. The graphic on this slide shows the current available and in-work 3-depth data as of August 2022. We currently have data either available or in work for approximately 84% of the nation, including 100% coverage of IfSAR data in Alaska. The estimated percent complete will be updated near the end of October after the beginning of the federal fiscal year. An updated status map will be generated just prior to the release of the BAA. The map will be posted with the BAA release and on our web pages. The USGS also makes shapefiles used to build our status maps available for download to enable integration with your areas of interest for project planning. Map attachments will be available in JPEG and shapefile format on the BAA website and in PDF format through the official program announcement package available on sam.gov and grants.gov. The second selection criteria is areal extent. 3-depth prefers projects greater than 1,500 square miles. Smaller projects will be considered to fill gaps in coverage where a project is a complete political or physical unit, such as a county or a watershed, or if the applicant is providing a substantial cost share and is looking for a small amount of funding to complete the project. 3-depth also prefers contiguous areas. The example in the bottom right illustrates where specific requirements of the partner, shown in bright yellow, have been expanded to a contiguous block of data represented by the bright yellow and light green. The third selection criteria is overlap with federal geographic areas of interest. I'll take a moment here to remind you that the goal of 3-depth is nationwide coverage. While this criteria helps to define geographic areas that potentially satisfy multiple levels of government, USGS welcomes submissions from anywhere across the nation that currently lacks 3-depth quality data. I'll also remind you that the shapefiles used to make the map attachments will be available on the USGS FY23 BAA website. 3-depth uses a tiered approach to develop the score for this criterion. We'll explain by discussing different representations of federal priority areas in attachments F, G, and H in the BAA informational materials, starting with the attachment F. General preference is given to a project that overlaps with any federal area of interest. This attachment shows the number of federal agencies seeking LiDAR in an area. Additional preference is given to projects that are adjacent to or overlap any FY23 high priority area of interest. The consolidated high priority map you will find in attachment G represents high priority federal requirements over which federal agencies may be actively seeking partnerships. Attachment H includes a map of each participating 3-depth agency and categorizes priorities as high, medium, or low for that particular agency. Please be aware that an agency's high priority doesn't always correspond to actual funding availability. So it's a good idea to connect with agency contacts and discuss the specifics as you evaluate this information. This is a good moment to mention a couple of ways to find priority area contact information, to build partnerships, and to expand collaboration. First, many of the geographic areas of interest, or AOIs, presented in the BAA attachments are available to view through C-Sketch, which includes points of contact that can be found by selecting the AOI. For example, the top left shows an example USGS U.S. Forest Service area in Idaho that has provided a POC for their GTAC center, who will be able to direct you to the appropriate regional colleague. The NRCS example in the lower left displays the point of contact for both a regional and an FPAC BC national employee, while the example in the lower right includes the name of a regional FEMA representative for an AOI in Kentucky. If you're unable to identify the appropriate federal agency POC, please send a note to gs_BAA@usgs.gov. USGS, working through the 3DEP working group member agencies, will be happy to assist connecting federal and non-federal partners. Another opportunity for collaboration is through your state. The USGS and the National States Geographic Information Council, or NSGIC, work under a cooperative agreement on the 3DEP for the Nation project. One of the goals of this collaboration is to work with NSGIC member states and private sector partners to develop state 3DEP acquisition plans. These state plans bring together 3DEP stakeholders to collectively outline and plan for LiDAR data acquisition that considers the unique requirements, geography, and funding partners in each state. NSGIC maintains an information hub specific to this project, and we encourage you to visit it to find out information and local context for 3DEP for the Nation activities within your state. The fourth selection criteria is project cost share. Preference is given to applicants who offer larger contributions to the total cost of their projects. It is important to note how federal agency contributions are to be noted in BAA proposals as listed on this slide. Federal, regional, and state contributions should be included as part of the application package, while federal headquarters contributions are included as part of the BAA Partnership Award. The fifth selection criteria includes both an assessment of the maturity of the applicant's proposal and the maturity of designated funding sources. Applicants are required to note each contribution as guaranteed or pending on the funding table in the proposal submission tool described earlier. It may be necessary to note funding as pending because federal, state, or local fiscal years are not aligned. The table includes an area where you can identify the date when you will be able to validate any pending funding. If a large percentage of your funding is pending, the USGS may withhold a final decision on your award until the funding has been verified. It is important to note that funding should be in place 60 days prior to the proposed acquisition window and no later than the final date set by GIPSI, which normally falls in mid-July. Applicants are required to provide a signed attachment D for each of the funding partners. This attachment confirms that the funding partners listed in the proposal are aware of their inclusion in the proposal and that the proposed contribution is made in good faith. The last selection criteria is the applicant's technical approach. All projects must adhere to the latest USGS LiDAR-based specification, again LBS, in effect at the time of the award. The LBS naming convention has recently been changed, and going forward will identify versions by year and will designate a revision packet that has been implemented using a letter. For example, LBS 2022 Revision A has recently been released and is the most recent up-to-date version of the LBS. Limited exceptions to the LBS rule might be made for nonlinear LiDAR technologies. These limited exceptions will be documented and discussed with the application in advance of award. Applicants proposing to manage their own contract via a financial assistance award will be evaluated on the applicant's approach to data acquisition and required project deliverables. All products must meet the minimum 3DEP standards and specifications as defined in the LBS. Projects making use of the GIPSI as the acquisition mechanism receive full score for technical approach. Agreement development is critical to the success of BAA projects, so I'd like to discuss the subject briefly before we conclude the webinar. Once selected for partner award, recipients choosing to use the GIPSI will work with a GIPSI POC in addition to their USGS National Map Liaison to complete the required acquisition documents, which include a funding agreement and the associated statement of work. If you are not familiar with these forms, you will want to review and share them with your administrative and legal team who has the authority to obligate your funds. The funding agreement will define the financial contributions, the billing terms, the period of performance, and the expectations of both the USGS and your organization fulfilling the terms of the agreement. In addition to the National Map Liaisons, the USGS National Geospatial Technical Operations Center, or NGTOC, maintains a staff of employees with expertise in development and execution of interagency agreements for our federal partners joint funding agreements, or JFAs, for our state and local partners, and other unique types of agreements that may be needed for partners such as those from nonprofit organizations or associations in the private sector. Applicants receiving financial assistance awards in the form of cooperative agreements will work with a USGS cooperative agreement specialist from the USGS Office of Acquisition and Grants, or OAG, and a USGS technical point of contact, or a TPOC, who will work with you throughout the life of the project. The timing of agreements is crucial for project success. As noted earlier, the proposed funding table in the BAA submission tool, attachment A, includes a location for applicants to enter the date when they expect their funding to be available. The BAA evaluation team will review these dates as part of the evaluation process. For those selecting to use GYPSI, your funding agreement should be in place 60 days prior to your desired acquisition window. All funding must be in place before the USGS can issue an RFP for GYPSI. The deadline for all funding agreements to be in place for FY23 projects will be on or around July 15th, 2023. We value our partnerships and look forward to working with you. However, if your funding agreements cannot be signed before the agreement deadline, we encourage you to get your funding in place and potentially target the next BAA cycle. For those requesting financial assistance through a cooperative agreement, the USGS Office of Acquisition and Grants sets annual deadlines for receipt of all materials required to complete the agreement. The deadlines are based on total value of the agreement, generally somewhere around May 1st for agreements over $500,000 and June 15th for agreements under $500,000. Final dates for the FY23 3-DEP BAA program release, deadline to request a preliminary IGCE, and BAA proposal deadline are still pending. Based on the most current information that we have, the release for the FY-BAA is tentatively scheduled for late September 2022. Should you elect to use the preliminary IGC to estimate your project costs, the deadline will be approximately 3 to 4 weeks after the release of the BAA. The submission deadline for FY23 BAA proposals will be approximately 7 to 8 weeks after the release of the BAA. A USGS technical announcement will be published to announce the FY23 BAA. That concludes the presentation. Thank you very much